Hey guys, I'm Dorian and welcome to Massive in Depth number 9. Today we're going to be talking about Massive's insert effects. Massive's insert effects can be found at the bottom center of Massive. There are 2 effect slots and they're labeled Insert 1 and Insert 2. These can be inserted at different places in Massive's signal flow. This can be changed in routing page as discussed in Massive in Depth number 2. If you click the drop-down menu on the insert, you can see your choices. The first is a simple delay, which creates a signal delay at a signal with only dry, wet, and delay time. This can be used for a multitude of sound design purposes, but one really cool use is to insert it in the feedback line and use it to create unpredictable sounds like this. So as you can see, I make this little dot and then I grab it with the feedback and the delay starts repeating it. And you can make some pretty crazy noises. Mostly sound design type stuff, not really for music type things. So the next we have the sample and hold effect, and I'm going to bring up an oscilloscope to look at this. Okay, so I'm going to set a triangle wave. Alright, so the sample and hold effect is a classic sample and hold effect. It samples the incoming audio signal at a given time interval, and this sample is held until the next sample is taken. This results in a stepped temporarily quantized audio signal. The pitch control controls the time interval at which the signal is sampled. Higher settings result in a higher pitched effect, while lower settings result in a deeper distortion. You can see on the oscilloscope So you can see as we decrease pitch, the steps start increasing on the oscilloscope. Until we have something in between a saw and square wave. So next we have bit crushing. Bit crushing is a digital effect that creates distortion in your signal by reducing the bit depth of the signal. The crush control adjusts the amount of bit depth reduction. You can use this effect to create digital degradation sounds such as were typical with early digital samplers, or to add a slight bit of noise to your sound when you use crush subtly. If you look at the oscilloscope, you can see as we turn the bit crusher knob, we get a similar result as sample and hold, but with the reverse direction of the knob turn. It sounds slightly different, but the waveforms look really close to each other. I know that sample and hold and bit crushing are interrelated. I'm not 100% sure how or if it matters in Massive, but there's that. So next we have frequency shifting. Simply put, it shifts the frequency of the incoming signal. This was very common on analog synthesizers, but is seldom implemented in digital software-based instruments. There's lots of uses for this effect. I try it very often when I'm using massive, especially when other things like distortion and the modulation isn't working well, or if I want to add something a little wild, I'll use the frequency shifter. You can also place this in the feedback loop and do cool things. So this is especially important because when you use feedback, oftentimes you get a more interesting sound, but it introduces a lot of bass. So you can use the frequency shifter if you don't want to use the EQ, but you need to get rid of bass without mixing outside of the synth for whatever reason. Another thing you can use the frequency shifter for is to make a phase to bass sound. So it's better to use a macro and set the macro to the smallest amount you can, which is like nothing. I just saw it tick, and then you can turn the knob and have more control. It might not even have. I might be crazy. Let's see. Okay. Overall, it's sort of not best used to make detuning type sounds because it's not, God, how do I say it? It's not a pitch shifter, it's a frequency shifter, so it doesn't shift musically. It doesn't shift harmonics the way it should, because it just shifts it based on a certain number of hertz, not a musical interval. So you should probably look more towards the frequency shifter to do type of like flanging or syncing, distorted, high-pitched, bright, more digital type sounds than perhaps a detune, traditional detune would give you. So it's better to stick to just like detuning the oscillators or the voices. Next you have a high pass and low pass filter. It's pretty simple. It just lets you high pass and low pass somewhere in the signal. I don't use it very often. Next is the Sine Shaper. This is a wave shaper in which the signal amplitude is mapped to the rising and falling amplitude of a sine wave. The manual suggests trying the Sine Shaper on a non-linear type of distortion effect. I have no idea what that means. I mean, I know what non-linear is, but I don't know what using it as a linear versus non-linear effect. I thought distortion, or I thought it was just non-linear. So if there's some other way to use this, I don't get it. I think they're trying to imply in this next statement right here that it says Sine Shaper is very sensitive to rapid amplitude changes, such as the beating or wobbling sound caused by dissonant harmonic intervals. So I figured out how to work that, and we're going to check out some examples, but as far as what they mean by non-linear, I'm not sure. They say things in the manual that sounds like it was written by a marketer sometimes. big as it probably was. So let's start with a pretty dissonant interval. It's a minor second. And then set insert 1 after filter 1. And turn on the Sine Shaper. Okay, that's the Sine Shaper. That's the Parabolic Shaper. And this is the hard clipper. So, anyways, I'm not going to comment on anything yet. Let's go to a perfect fifth. Okay, parabolic. Hard clipper. Next, an octave. Sorry, Sine Shaper. Parabolic. Hard clipper. Octave and a perfect fifth. I remember having different results last night, but let's try just some detuning. Okay, so honestly, I have no idea what they're talking about. I thought it did last night, but I would just say the Sine Shaper sounds more annoying and gritty on the whole. You can also get, God, it's like this this like metallic wobble sound that Skrillex used on his new album. But I don't have that patch set up or even saved. So next we have the Parabolic Shaper. It's also a wave shaper like the Sine Shaper, but with a different shaping curve. Instead of a sine, it uses an S-like curve. As you turn up the drive control, the linear transitions become rectangular ones, and this distorts the smooth transitions of any input curve. So let's see. Do the triangle again. So you can see it sort of bends it up into a square. Finally, we have hard clipping. As the name implies, the signal clips hard at the set threshold defined by the drive knob. The audible distortion is much more intense than with the sine or parabolic shaper. A standard sine wave is turned into a square wave easily. So let's watch this with a triangle. So we have basically a pure triangle. And as I turn drive, you can see the top starting to get flattened out. So a clipper basically turns things into square waves. If you try it on a square wave, basically nothing happens. That's a saw. It gets a little louder. That's pretty much the end, but I'm going to try and mess around with this Sine Shaper a little bit more because I swear it does other things. And then we're going to finish. Okay, whatever cool things I thought I was doing with this, I'm not doing them correctly anymore. It might have been on some patch I was working on, since this is pretty much all I've been doing all day for quite a while now. This completes Massive in Depth number 9. Thank you.